Can you start each lesson with a cool catchphrase?
I do in design and technology.
Well, let's start one for multimedia.
It's hard to get something that's appropriate. Okay, so as I mentioned, we're now looking at media or multimedia in the framework of the internet. So I already talked about the internet and what it is. However, what does it mean for multimedia? So one of the outcomes that you need to look at and be able to answer questions about are the factors that affect multimedia products with the web. So what does it mean for you producing a multimedia product? The first one is connection speed. Now, a lot of people don't quite understand what it means, bandwidth. And we'll talk about this with hardware as well down the track. However, it's the same concept. If you consider any cables, connections, Wi-Fi, satellite signal, a highway for bits and bytes, you've got an idea of it. Those highways will have so many lanes. So we're talking about 32 bits, 32 lanes, or 64 bit, 64 lanes. It's exactly the same concept. But it also has speed limits. So how fast can you push things down these lanes? So increasing the lane size or amounts obviously lets more traffic go down it, which seems like it's faster, but it's just allowing more at once. Or you can increase the actual speed. So if there are more lanes and faster speed limits, more data or traffic, and you call it traffic. Literally call it traffic on the internet. Can get through within a time frame. So it's important you understand that. So we've got this limitation when we're accessing anything online. Even across our network here, the traffic on the network can increase to the point where the whole network slows down. So measuring internet speed, this is something you need to understand. We use this term bandwidth, but what does it actually mean? It's the maximum data transfer, and notice it says maximum. You don't always get the speed that you think you get. You could have an internet service provider saying, you're going to get speeds of up to, but notice they say of up to, not necessarily get it, this speed, this bandwidth. And it measures it in how much data can be sent over a specific connection in a given amount of time. And quite often it's megabits, bits, not bytes, per second. That's what you'll probably find with internet speeds these days. When I was first connecting my little dial-up modem, it was 57 kilobits per second. And you'd hear that sort of fax sound, the doing, 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 shh, connecting up, dial in. Can't get any phone calls at that time because you've suddenly gone on the internet. Much slower. But the principles are still the same in that the speed in which we can download and upload on the internet really affects what we need to do with multimedia. So what does it mean for multimedia products? Since media files, as you know, can often be really large, especially video, how do you ensure a good user experience? Has anyone got any answers to that? How can we ensure our multimedia product, whether it's a website, a game, a video, whatever it is going to be received in a way that's a good user experience? Marty? Compression, yes. What do you mean by compression though? What are you compressing?
When like the video gets lower quality, but like it's also smaller. So, yeah.
Yep, exactly. By reducing the file size, using compression techniques, absolutely. Yeah, Nathan?
If it's like a program, like a game or something, optimizing it so that it'll take like less processing power to do the same things.
Do you know ways in which you can optimize a game to do that?
I think it depends on how you code it.
It can be, yes, it can be. But from the user end, what options might you give them?
Like resolution.
Yes.
Detail.
Yes.
That sort of thing.
Frame rate.
Yeah.
All those sorts of things. Yes. You're right. Any others? No, but they're good. The compression one's a really classic one. The game one, you've probably got one of my last points because it's an unusual one to point out, but you're right, absolutely right. First thing, use of compressed file types to allow for fast access. So making your file type smaller, yes, you'll lose some quality, as you know, but that's one way that web-based multimedia products get around it. Video audio streaming, the fact that you stream your information. You don't get the whole thing at once, you get parts of it, but enough for you to view it. So you think of YouTube, and you see the buffering that goes on with YouTube. And sometimes it will lag and stop, and you sit there waiting for it to process a bit more. That's streaming. Interlaced images. Now, interlaced images are very similar to interlaced video footage. And the way it works, I've got an example right there for you. So that is an interlaced image, the one on the right. That's a progressive one. So what it does is it sends you every second bit or every second piece of data down the line. So it's giving you half the information, but straight away you're going to start seeing what the image is. Whereas if I progressively give it to you, you're going to see the top part first, then eventually the next bit, the next bit. And it takes a while for you to actually see what it is. Whereas if this pops up instantly, you sort of go, okay, I can see the flower there, and then all of a sudden it'll go in focus. And you'll probably notice that most are interlaced images for the internet. Have you seen that when you go on the internet? It's sort of a bit blurry at first, and then it goes in focus. That's what's happening.
So if I can get a nice back, like window,
What have you
beyond that.
Go on. Now, of course, there are specific file types for media that work, and I've given an example of web-based graphics. So GIF or GIF, whichever way you want to say it, is specifically made for the internet. It's a limited colour palette, the animation capabilities, all of those things are there for the internet. That came from that dial-up modem period. It was our quickest way of getting a graphic there. PNGs, portable network graphic, a little bit better quality, allows transparency layers, all of those sorts of things. Again, a bit more compact as well. And JPEGs. JPEGs are actually made for the internet. They're, again, compressed. And you know how when you've got your JPEG, if you save in Photoshop, you can choose the quality. That's you compressing it. How much are you going to compress it? Frame rate and resolution options in online games, which Nathan brought up. So with an online game, you're trying to access stuff in real time. However, if you don't have a very high speed, you sort of want to change the speed for the information about your environment. And so you can change things like frame rate and resolution. Very unusual if this was brought up in a direct question in the HSC. However, if they ask for solutions or possible issues, then you know that this is one of them. Now we're going to go back a bit. Test yourself. If you remember, we had to calculate bits and bytes. Yes. Everyone's shaking their heads. 1 bit, 8 bits to a byte, 1024 bytes to a kilobyte. Remember that? Yeah, I've got nods and shakes of heads. You got the question wrong in the test? We don't want that to happen anymore. Come on, see if you can do it. Remember, this is a key point. That is megabits. Megabits, 1024 megabits per second. Hey? It's pretty simple. Well, how many bits in a byte? Who said 8? Yes. So all you need to do to get megabytes is what? Divide by 8. Yeah. Sorry? What's a different question? Oh, you're testing people. Okay, good, Avinash. Now, I'm letting you think about this at the moment. You really need to start remembering this information. Preliminary information isn't directly tested, it's assumed. It's assumed you've done these bits and bytes conversions. So you need to be able to do the calculations. I'll give you the answers in a moment, but I want you to try. Yes, Kerry. You have to try. It's per second. Is anyone going to suggest the first answer? You had a clue in that very first screen there a moment ago when it said how many megabits to megabytes. This is a neat answer, the first one. The second one's not. Any luck, Kerry?
No, I just want to use the calculator.
Oh, that doesn't help. Oh, by the way, you are allowed to take a calculator into this exam. We're not testing your maths, we're testing your understanding how maths applies. You got an answer, Anya, for the first one? No, that's okay.
So I'm just going to say
243 seconds.
Is that megabits per second?
This is megabits? Yes. So how many megabytes is it? Let's do that first. Who can help people by saying how many megabytes per second it is? Yes. 128 megabytes per second. How many times is there 128 megabytes in 1.9 gig?
I've got an answer.
What's yours?
1.15.
15 seconds? Like, that's what you're suggesting? All right.
It's 15. Well, what's this? 128 times 15 is what you get to 1.9.
So 15 seconds or so should be 15 seconds.
Oh, okay.
So 1.9.
So it is
Wait, what's the one to
1,074 megabytes.
Okay, just one moment. I'm getting a few questions. I'm going to say first off that your 15 seconds is correct. Okay. Laura had a question. What was your question?
What's the 128 number?
The 128 megabytes. So when we're looking at the 1024 megabits, we're turning that into megabytes. To do that, we divide that by 8. Okay, because there's 8 bits to 1 byte.
Oh, so wait.
And this is always the catch with these conversions. Yes, if there's capital M, if you get the MB, capital B, you know it's a byte. Yes. The lowercase is the clue. That's why I told you what it was. It's megabits. Quite often they state it. They don't necessarily assume you know these abbreviations. Anyone worked out B? Simon's. Okay, so how much? Give us that in a sensible time. So
Minutes, seconds.
probably hours is probably a good one.
And then
What's that answer?
32 hours.
32 hours.
34 hours.
Yes.
34 hours.
Or 33 hours.
On in,
Yeah.
there's 1,024 megabytes.
What did you get? Something's missing there. Oh, and you can't give up on this. You really do need to try it. You do. I've given you hard ones, so they'll be easier than this. But the first one is definitely an HSC type question. You will get something like that.
You reckon working out on the portal?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll show you in a moment. Yes.
My brain is so good.
This is why I'm doing that.
Need to go with that, so I think it's against the law.
Yeah, because it's KB.
Double check your calculations. Okay, I'm not going to put the answers up yet. Let's go through the process. For the first one, we divide that by 8, what do we get? 128. Yes. So we get 128 megabytes per second. How many times does 128 megabytes fit into 1.9 gigabytes? Now, remember that 1.9 gigabytes is how many megabytes? 1.9 times?
1.24.
Yes. Okay. Should be just an even 15. So basically, you can round it down. Yeah. Yeah. So 15.2 would be a precise answer. They'd probably give you an approximate time because we don't talk about 15.2 seconds. So you get 15 seconds or 15.2. You're correct. Well, we know that we're going to get this in seconds, so we can do this many megabytes per second. We need to divide that into that answer there. Once you've got that, that's the amount of seconds. Okay? So if I want to put this, you go, all we're doing is turning that into megabytes, really.
I've got the answers to this.
Yeah, we'll get to the next one.
Okay.
Don't want that to go down. That was dramatic, wasn't it? Okay. Our next one. Yeah, KB, PS.
Another guess, sir.
Yes.
Is it 54 hours? No. Yeah, 54 hours, 2 minutes and 40 seconds.
Let's go through it. Okay, so we've got 128 kbps, so kilobits per second. How many kilobytes per second is it?
Oh, it's asking.
So 16. So we now get that same answer. What's kilobytes? Sorry. Kilobytes, yes, sorry. If we're going to go to megabytes, how do we do that? Right? What's that?
0.01565.
Now what do we do? How do we work that out from there? You know how many megabytes per second it's going? So what do we need? The answer to that divided by this. So try that. All right. This, first off, this is getting the size in megabytes. Now I've got a feeling I might have a typo on my answer there.
Wouldn't it be easier to get the size in kilobytes and then that way you're not dealing with
You could do that as well. You'd have to times that by 1024 again.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So what's the answer there? How many seconds? Oh, you've got calculators. You're allowed to use them.
1, 2, 4, 5, 1, 8. Yeah, 24.
So we need to divide that by 60. So what's that?
207.
That was this, the file size in megabytes, divided by that.
So 15.
Okay, so this is what we're downloading. This is the speed in megabytes per second. So we need to divide this by that. Yep.
In minutes, it's 2075.31 to 2 decimal places.
Yep, that'll do.
And then
Hours.
hours is 34.6 to 1 decimal place.
So you can see that I'll give you a couple of test questions in this. Just the practice ones. The key point is being able to convert things in a way that makes it calculate easily. Okay, so one, turning this into a file size that you can calculate directly into your speed. That's the important thing. If I did a really simple one, let's make it really easy. Let's do the marker that works.
Yeah, I was looking at 1, 2, 5, 5.
I'm going to make it here. We've got a speed of 1 megabyte per second. How long does it take 1 gigabyte to be downloaded?
1.247.
Wait. You've got it. I'm asking people that haven't got it. How do we work it out? First of all, we need to know this in megabytes. That's a gigabyte. 1024 megabytes is a gigabyte. Remember, it all goes up by 1024. So, it's 1024 seconds for 1 megabyte per second. Does that make sense? So I'm dividing this by that. Okay. You're still, I can see Anastasia going, no.
I'm inspired to drop it, so this one question is just inspiring.
This will be only one question.
Wow,
The whole lot, and it'll be easier.
This one question will get me up and out, so.
You'll be right. Are you with me with this one? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Let's change it.
Yeah, so it's
Change it to that. 32 megabytes per second, same file size.
So I'm still stuck on the first one here. This is 24 by 1.
1024.
It's just standard. That's what you
This is what we did in year 11, right? I'll show you. 1 bit is the smallest possible unit. Okay? There's this pattern. What you need to know is these. It's really easy to know the pattern. It's 1024, except for that part. This is the part that makes it hard. It's going from bits to bytes. The rest of it, you just either dividing or timesing by 1024 to determine where it sits. Okay, so smallest possible bit, the 1 or the 0, is a bit. We then have 8 bits on this highway, running along at any time, which is 1 byte. Once we go past this point, it's bytes, kilobytes, kilobytes, megabytes, megabytes, gigabytes, and so on, up by 1,000. You'll find it won't matter a great deal. They're not going to confuse you with it.
What about the kilobits and kilobytes?
Yeah, that's where they make sure you've got all lowercase. But when they're talking about download speeds, they're going to state what it is. They're not going to allow any confusion. Kilobit is 1024 bits. Because the internet speeds originally weren't even up to that level. So to make it sound better,
So what's a kilobit? A kilobit is 1,024 bits.
Yes.
No, they're like a megabit.
Oh, that's why we divided it by 8.
yes, because you needed to change it from bits to bytes. Has it just worked out there? Yeah. All right. We'll move on. We will. All right. Moving on, guys. This is just demonstrating it to you. Obviously, we need to practice this, and I'll give you a few tasks that scaffold it upwards. But what I'm also doing here is reminding you. You right, Amanda? Reminding you that all that information that you've gathered throughout the last 2 years is important. So make sure you pull it all together because it's all very useful. In fact, your evaluation of materials, tools and processes for your major projects are also valuable. So all of that leads into the theory. Now we have another issue with internet and multimedia products, I should say. The first issue we've covered is speed. It's limited. The second issue is the fact that we have so many different devices and platforms accessing the same thing. You have Windows machines, some of you have those. You have OS X, which is the Apple. You have Linux, which is a free-based software, okay, so operating system. You have mobile operating systems. They're actually different to Windows. So you've got Windows Mobile, you've got the OS 10 mobile, you've got all of these other operating systems.
So Eastern time, not 34.6 hours. Would you go 34 hours and 35 minutes?
Yes, but either way you'll be okay.
Operating system.
Yeah, it's operating system 10. It's really imaginative name. Operating system version 10. That's the Apple operating system. Okay? Now, the important thing here is not necessarily knowing these operating systems, but the fact that they exist. And if you worked with old Apple machines and tried to move files between that and Windows, it was really horrible. In fact, Apple still has some issues with some Windows files. Good example is WMV, Windows Media Video, WMA. They're exclusively made for Windows. So choosing that file type is going to have an issue for you. Because those people trying to watch it on an Apple machine or a Linux machine or even a mobile device may not be able to view it back. Another issue that's arisen is shockwave video. FLV, I should say, sorry, flash video. Doesn't work on smartphones or smart devices. They've cut it out completely. Yep.
So why do they do that?
To control the creation of apps, basically. If they allowed flash video and shockwave files to work on your phones, anyone could make an app without worrying about going through Apple, going through Google, going through whoever's trying to control the market. It was a commercial decision. Few solutions to these problems. Selecting common file or font types to all platforms. When you go into your font choices, you'll notice that there's a whole lot of common ones. And in Adobe, you'll have Adobe fonts. You've got to be careful using those. Because when you display them, people won't necessarily see the font as it is. And you've probably uploaded things where it says you don't have this font installed, so it converts it. You had that happen? Yeah. The conversion might not be to a really nice font either. It tries to get the closest one based on the code. The font as a graphic. What if you did your heading as a graphic? Straight away, every platform's going to see it exactly as it is. So sometimes, when you're looking at a heading or a font, a bit of text, it's actually a graphic. So, you know, in Photoshop, you can put in whatever font you like, save it as a JPEG, the font's irrelevant. It's now part of the graphic. That's one way of doing it as well. With the use of mobile devices now, the coding community have sort of gone a roundabout way of fixing the problem. And they use what's called HTML5 now. A lot of apps are actually created using web-based coding. So the HTML5 allows for animations and interactivity that HTML previously didn't. And what you should know at this point is, who knows exactly what HTML is? That's it? What's it for? Yeah, what's it for though?
User interface?
Sort of, yeah. Yeah, not quite. You do code in it, so to speak. Yeah. That's exactly what it means, yes. Oh, sorry, yeah. But what does it do? No, it doesn't let you search the web. That's, yeah, where? In a... Yeah, close. Web browser, thank you. When you open up Internet Explorer, Firefox, you're looking back on your notes, that's excellent. Right? Or you're looking it up on Google. She's looking at an alien. She's working on a major project and doing a theory. That's pretty good. Going back to what I'm saying. It's the language to tell the browser how to display information. So when you see a website and you have a font change size, where it's placed, a paragraph or a heading, even the name of the window for the website is all done through HTML. Of course, we know that there's CSS as well, but that's just a way of organising information in a consistent way and speed up web access. However, HTML5 allows a bit more interactivity. Things that Flash used to do is now capable using just HTML. So that's the way the developers got around what Apple and Google were doing. They changed the HTML protocol. You also have the provision for what's called the installation of plugins. Who can tell me what a plugin is? I'm going to go to Simon. He sort of raised his hand, ever so relaxed.
It's something that can be added to a program.
Yeah. Yes. Yep. Absolutely right. And for Laura's benefit, I'll repeat what you said in the recordings. A plugin is an addition to a piece of software. It can be a new feature, as you suggested. So if you've got a plugin for After Effects, it might be a way of adding another special effect in After Effects that comes in as a plugin. You can also get plugins for your web browser, which might be to allow for fonts to appear. Or you might get a plugin for actual hardware as well, sometimes. You might get a plugin to display certain video file types. So if you notice you had to update Flash for YouTube, or update something on YouTube, that's the plugin to play these things back. So it's another little tiny piece of software that you, as a multimedia product, as a website, you make available. So the link, download Flash Player or whatever appears, that's another way around the problem. Another issue can often be hardware, because you're expecting a certain hardware type. You provide the tools to update your hardware, your drivers. Now, a driver is more for the hardware of your computer. Similar idea to the plugin. It's there to add to your operating system, but allows the hardware to be utilized. I don't know whether you see, we were getting a message on After Effects for a while. Does anyone remember what that was? At the end of last year, there was this pop-up going, oh, you need to... Yeah, that's right. To actually make After Effects work efficiently, you actually needed to put in a hardware driver for the graphics card. It's another little piece of software just for the computer to be able to run After Effects efficiently. And it was popping up constantly last year. Another solution, especially if you're making a website, is this, responsive web design. What's that? Does anyone know? This is a new big thing for website creation.
Interactivity.
Not quite interactivity, no. You're close. You're very close, yes. You're absolutely, you're right on the verge of it. To what? To the user interface, to different, what were you going to say? No, what you were going to say. Forget what everyone else is saying. What were you going to say straight away? To different what? Well, just use any word you like. It doesn't have to be the right word.
To different equipment.
Yes. To different devices. Yeah, but you. I have the feeling you're on the right track. That's why I said you answer the way you think is right. If I want a website to appear on this, on this, on this, we've got totally different screen sizes and orientations and things. Responsive web design is where you create multiple versions of a website to meet the different resolution requirements or platforms that it's been played on. You'll notice that a mobile phone site looks totally different to the web-based site. And that's what we mean by responsive design. You've got to think about how do you make your mobile site and how do you make your laptop or desktop site. And what happens is when the device connects to that web page, the web page reads what device it's running on and changes accordingly. And that's the responsive aspect. It's responding to the device you're using to access it. These days, if you don't have a web page using that, they may as well just give up now. 70% of web traffic through the phone.
Yeah.
Who's that?
No.
Yeah, well,
Well, it's not technically that.
well, if they've got an app, that's their way around it. But it's those sorts of posting sites and things like that, where it's very skeleton based, they're not going to worry about it because they don't have a commercial interest. But commercially, I doubt you'd find a website show up on a phone without responsive design. But that's one way they get around it. Yeah. And finally, playback options. Who's gone to YouTube and picked the resolution that you play back on? Or possibly even what type of file you download. Okay? But you see that there are all those options appearing there. So when we get questions regarding internet and multimedia projects, you can see straight away that we've got these major problems that we've got to overcome. And the only way you can overcome it from the producer's point of view is to use some of these solutions. So you may be asked a question. Someone tries to open up a website and the video doesn't work. What are possible reasons for this? Yep, maybe the bandwidth is just not coming through. Great. You can give me another reason. Not compatible? Yep.
If it's a flash video on a mobile device.
Absolutely, you're right. You're now giving me answers that are correct. Now, if they take it a step further, what are some of the solutions? Yep. That's it for the video. Remember, it was specific about video. Okay. I was giving you solutions to multiple problems. So, sort of, yeah, but that's not changing the video file.
Offering installation of problems.
Yes, could be that.
Use different file type.
A common file type would be a good one, yeah. So common file types are things like MPEGs. That's crosses the board. You can open an MPEG and just about everything. Can't open an AVI and everything. Can't open a QuickTime movie and everything. What about the users? This is where we'll go to next. How can the user solve the problem? Maybe, yeah.
Get their software updated.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, a different bit of software to play it. Absolutely. Different browsers. You're right. I'll go into that a bit more because everyone should have those notes. But this is sort of the way that we approach the questions quite often when we're talking about the web in the HSC. Now, I don't remember a web question being in last year's exam, so I'd say we're probably going to get one this year.
Would it all be on like the short answers?
Yes, they're all in the short answers. The largest answer you'll get is a 5-mark question, okay? So you've got to answer a 5-mark question, and it would be something like I just said.
No 6 or 9 or any.
No, 6 and 9 are only the extended response.
Yeah, but they will still have in there.
Yeah, they'll be in there, but that's the industry stuff.
You can get on this spot.
Correct. Now, that 5-mark question would be solutions to problems. So why is this occurring? What's the solution? For 5 marks, if you came up with 3 problems, 3 solutions, you covered it. Okay? It's not too hard, but you do need to understand it. So, do go back over this. Now, I noticed I had a typo in the slideshow for my answer, so I've got to go back and make sure the answer's correct for you. But the 34.6 hours, I think mine accidentally had 1.4, so like 14.6 or something. 34.6 would be right. You really do need to understand this conversion of bits to bytes. It just takes a few practice questions to really nail it. It's as hard as it gets. You don't have to get panic about it. It's not a maths course. You're allowed to take a calculator into the exam. You're allowed to take a calculator into your half year. Okay? And you're allowed to take a calculator into the HSC. So you don't have to be brilliant at maths, but you do need to understand that part. That's the crunch part. The 1 bit to 8 bits to 1 byte. Okay?